Hello everyone, this is Gary from Fantastic Fundas and we are doing modern history series, and in this series this lecture is on the economic we are doing the economic critique of colonization in India, the colonialism in India. In last lecture I gave you the introduction of the this whole critique, and I also shared that how Britishers were cheating India and how they were economically exploiting India. So in this lecture I will talk to you about a lot of things. First, general, there are a few points. Now this is economic exploitation. Please try to understand. Then there is a question of economic exploitation, this becomes very important for prelim exam and mains exam, दोनों के लिए ये ज़रूरी है. तो इसके अंदर सबसे पहले क्या, देखिए ओवरऑल कुछ जनरल बातें हैं मैं विच आई वुड लाइक टू टॉक टू यू. एंड द फर्स्ट थिंग इज दैट आर्टिसन एंड क्राफ्ट्समैन, राइट, दीज पीपल वर कम्प्लीटली रूइंड. अब ये लोग ख़त्म हो गए, बहुत सारे कारण रहे हैं, ठीक है. उसके कुछ कुछ जो हमारे लोकल गुड्स बन रहे थे, व्हाट हैपेंड दैट व्हाई वर दीज पीपल डिस्ट्रॉयड, बिकॉज सी मशीनरी वाज कमिंग एंड दिस मशीनरी वाज ओन्ड बाय ब्रिटिशर एंड दिस मशीनरी कुड प्रोड्यूस गुड्स एट मच फास्टर रेट. For example, some particular product is being made by some artisan or craftsman, and then machinery can make it much faster, right? So one problem was a machinery when it came to artisan class. Okay, second thing was that is why they got destroyed, and second, economically destroyed. And second thing was about British imposed a policy of one-way trade, right? So Indian goods could not be sold in London, but British goods could be sold in India. So right, so there was policy of one-way trade after 1813. So where will the artisan sell its products? It would have no buyers. It would have much less buyers than what Britishers would have. So obviously they lost in competition, and Britishers had the एडवांटेज ऑफ इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल. उनको ज़्यादा अगर आप कोई चीज़ बनाते हो तो आपको सस्ती पड़ती है ना, तो उसे इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल कहते हैं. तो ब्रिटिशर को वो सस्ता पड़ रहा था, right? And then British goods, as I said, machinery, and this machinery was based on powerful steam engines and everything. And then there was railways in India. When railways came in India, many of people on Facebook and Twitter these days, they say, oh look at Britishers, they brought railways to India, they benefited us. बड़ा उनको महान कहते हैं कि जी फेसबुक वगैरह पे आजकल कि ब्रिटिशर्स ने हमें रेलवे दी. अरे हमें कुछ उन्होंने नहीं ये रेलवे दी, दैट इज़ फाइन, बिकॉज उस टाइम दुनिया में रेलवे आनी थी, तो वो इट हैड टू कम टू इंडिया ऑल्सो बिकॉज इट हैड टू कम. बट व्हेन रेलवे वॉज इंट्रोड्यूस देयर वर टू काइंड्स ऑफ रेट्स ऑन इट. If you want to transport goods in the trains, one was for Britishers and one was for Indians. So these two kind of rents were there. Now imagine, obviously for Indians this would be very costly proposition. Okay. Then Indians were forced to sell their goods below MRP, rather below let's say market price. Why MRP? Below market price, सस्ते में बेचने पे मजबूर किया जाता था उन्हें. फिर कोई भी इम्पोर्ट ड्यूटी, कोई भी अगर चीज़ को इम्पोर्ट हम करते थे, इट वुड हैव हाई इम्पोर्ट ड्यूटी. और इफ एनी गुड्स ऑफ इंडियंस वुड गो टू ब्रिटिशर्स, देयर इट वुड हैव हाई ड्यूटी. और इंडियंस को कोई रॉ मटेरियल चाहिए था, उसके ऊपर हाई ड्यूटी लग जाती थी. इम्पोर्ट ड्यूटीज वर वेरी हाई. ओके. And I said earlier also, they were very early. There was only one-way trade, but whatever little bit was allowed, even in that there were very high import duties. Okay, then see, there are few other things. For example, this production of military weapons, if we talk about, right, military weapons. Okay, so when we talk about military weapons, what were British doing? They were entirely dependent on Indian state. What they would do, they would use these initially it was dependent on Indian state, but what British started doing, they started purchasing all these goods from Britain only. They would import these goods, so that also created a problem. Okay, so basically there were very popular towns, as you know, Dhaka was there, Murshidabad was there. All these towns which were very flourishing towns, they were literally destroyed by the Britishers over here in India. They were depopulated. Population ही खत्म होगी जी वहाँ पे, and मतलब literally खत्म ही हो गया जितना ब्रिटिश जो भी इंडस्ट्री यहाँ पर थी. And finally India and जो एक एक्सपोर्टर था कॉटन का, as I have talked in earlier lecture also, हम कॉटन एक्सपोर्टर से क्या बन गए, ब्रिटिश, हम एक इम्पोर्टर ऑफ क्लोथ बन गए, यू नो। एक एक इंडिया कॉटन तो दे रहा था, एक्सपोर्टर तो बन गया, बट वी वर इम्पोर्टर ऑफ क्लोथ। कॉटन हमारी कपड़े उनके बनाए हुए पहन रहे थे, ठीक है ना। देयर इज सम कंफ्यूजन इन द डेफिनेशंस ऑफ द वर्ड आर्टिसन एंड क्राफ्ट्समैन फॉर few people. So artisan is anyone, any person who is skilled, first of all, okay, artist who knows the art, so he's a skilled worker and he practices some trade, you know, or handicraft, कुछ हैंडीक्राफ्ट वगैरह बनाता है, तो वो सारा आर्टिसन का ही काम होता है, ठीक है ना। अब फॉर एग्जांपल यू नो कोई कॉम्प्लिकेटेड टूल बनाना, जैसे एक सिंपल हथौड़ा ही बनाना है, हैमर बनाना है, राइट, और जैसे कोई सिंपल सी कोई चीज़ बनानी है, इवन दैट इज वर्क ऑफ आर्टिसन ओनली, ओके। सो दैट वाज द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ नंबर 1 वाज ऑफ आर्टिसन एंड क्राफ्ट्समैन, ओके। नंबर 2, so this is number 2 is we'll see how peasantry that impoverished peasantry, ओके। सो पेजेंट्री, जो किसान थे उनके साथ क्या प्रॉब्लम हो रही थी? ऑल ऑफ अस नो दैट देयर वाज प्रॉब्लम ऑफ रेंट, ओके, एंड व्हाट वाज द प्रॉब्लम? इट वाज हाई, हेवी असेसमेंट ऑफ रेंट वाज देयर। व्हाट एल्स वाज देयर? दैट you see, you might think we have already talked about these words like Riyatwadi and Mehelwadi. I will be talking about it in the next lecture, and so many other terms, the Didna system and the, you know, all these terms, and then these permanent settlement system I've already talked to you. All these terms, all these systems I will be talking to you soon in the next lecture. But what the condition of these people was even worse, okay. The cultivators जो थे, जो रियातवाड़ी में होते थे, इन सिस्टम के अंदर जो लोग होते थे रियातवाड़ी में एंड महलवाड़ी में, द कंडीशन ऑफ द peasant in these systems was the worst, okay. This is a fact that you have to remember. And then even, you know, though the demand of land revenue, it kept on increasing, right, but that is a surprising thing. This can come as a question in prelim exam and mains, of course, that when the demand of land revenue, this demand increased, okay, but what really happened, that land revenue, this demand is increasing but the land revenue as such decreased. ऐसा क्यों हो गया? लैंड रेवेन्यू की डिमांड बढ़ गई लेकिन कम हो गया, ऐसे कैसे हो गया? बिकॉज सी, बिकॉज ऑफ द पॉलिसीज ऑफ द ब्रिटिशर, एक्चुअली व्हाट वाज हैपनिंग इन इंडिया, दैट द प्राइजेस ऑफ द एग्रीकल्चरल प्रोडक्ट्स वर राइजिंग, okay. When the prices rose, you know, when the prices rise, what happen? You know, the price rises, the demand falls, you know, demand falls. So that was one, right. Although the demand of agriculture product is generally inflexible, it remains almost constant, but there is some impact. And second thing, the production, right, production declined because see, there was fragmentation of land and there was no capitalization of agriculture. जमीन टुकड़ों में बट चुकी थी, छोटे छोटे टुकड़े रह गए थे, and there was no capitalization of agriculture का मतलब होता है एग्रीकल्चर के अंदर कोई बड़ी इन्वेस्टमेंट्स नहीं हो रही थी. there was no new technology, no new tech, no tractor, no, you know, nothing like all this was there, okay. That's one part of it. What else was happening? See, government did nothing to improve the agriculture. So the role of the government was worse. They did nothing to improve the agriculture. Government did nothing to improve agriculture. So this is one major problem, okay. So one was the problem of tax was high, but the way in which it was collected was also very poor. So method of collecting tax, देखिए, एक तो होता है आपसे टैक्स लूँ मैं आके, और दूसरा होता है आपसे मैं टैक्स कैसे ले रहा हूँ, थप्पड़ मार के ले रहा हूँ, मैं आपसे तरह परेशान कर रहा हूँ, दुगना ले रहा हूँ आपसे, you know, when you're supposed to pay, let's say 10 rupees, I come and ask you 20 rupees and I keep 5 with me, 5 I give to senior, कर सब में बांट दिया, 10 I give to the government. This is what is happening today also, right? So this is the problem. Manner of tax collection was harsh. Now, if the peasant failed to see, if now this is a collection, right? I'm talking about collection over here. But imagine if if it's a question of but if the peasant is unable to pay the land, he's unable to pay. What happens? मैं पे ही नहीं कर पा रहा जी रेवेन्यू जो वो मेरे से मांग रहे हैं, तो what happens? सिंपल, टेक अवे माई लैंड. वो मेरी लैंड मेरे से छीन लेते थे. टेक माई लैंड. This is what they would do, you know, and they would put on sale, and arrears जो पैसे इकट्ठे होते थे वो they were collected, और आमतौर पे क्या होता था, लेकिन what would happen that peasant इससे पहले गवर्नमेंट कुछ करे वो खुद ही लैंड को बेच देता था, because you know peasant would sell the land himself because the government would not pay him anything, so peasant would sell the land, peasant land sold. This is what is happening. Okay, now see, most often that whenever, you know, this is his inability to pay the land revenue, it you know, okay, this is a circle actually I'd like to talk to you. Let me just make a square here. Okay, so here, so what happened that he cannot pay rent, right? Can't pay. So what he would do, he would, you know, borrow money. So he would borrow. अरे मदर इंडिया का सीन ही है, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, borrow money, but this money would be borrowed at high interest rate. Okay, at high interest rate, this is the which money would be borrowed, right? And because now जो नया law होता था, new laws also, they helped money lender, because there were no conditions on him. He could collect the rent back as he wanted. He could charge as much rent as he money he wanted. These days we have RBI, government controlling. You cannot charge beyond a particular rate of interest. Banks at least cannot do that. You know, there's a limit to it, right? And these the market forces are also there, which govern the rent, this revenue, the interest rate. And you know, even government has these subsidy scheme these days. आपने कभी सुना होगा, we will give you subsidy on agricultural loans. What does that mean? That the interest rate on the rent to the agriculturist or the peasant is subsidized. उसके अंदर interest कम होता लगता है, ठीक है, जो loan लिया गया है, right? And you know, this money lender was this money lender over here, he's a very clever guy. First of all, you know, British government helped him, and second thing is that he would go to court, and you know, कोर्ट के झंझट में डाल के रखता था. He would misuse law to his favor. So that was happening. Then you know, आप जैसे मदर इंडिया में होता है, जो बिरजू होता है in मदर इंडिया मूवी, if you seen that movie, what happens that Birju goes and says, Lala, show me the book, how can you charge me more, I've already paid you so much money. So Lala says, oh, Lala laughs very loud, and you know, Lala says to Birju that, okay, take this account and see it. What happens then? You know, Birju gets the account book, but he cannot read it because he is illiterate. And you know, in spite of having a whole account in front of him, he cannot confront Lala over there, who is paying money to the Birju, because he cannot understand it. Okay, so ignorance and illiteracy, they were a major curse, and land, you know, peasant was being exploited. And then you know, the peasant would purchase the land, you know, peasant would sell this his crop at a very low rate, because no one will give him high price. That was another problem, right? And then you know, what happened, okay, there's more, let me change the color so that there is no confusion about it. Okay, so what is happening here, that okay, let me just rub it only, so just to make it clear. Yeah. So what more is happening? See, as I said earlier, there were places like Dhaka and Murshidabad. Now these places had the huge industry, but now this industry is in ruins. Why? I've already talked about it, because there were big machines, there were import policy, there were money control by the British government throughout the British Empire. I'm talking about पूरे British Empire में ऐसा हो रहा था. Machine आई, interest, foreign policy पे control, उनकी वजह से वो economy को अपने मुताबिक चला रहे थे. So what happened that there was no industry left in India, and when there was no industry, what happened? What do? People do agriculture. They come down to do, and when there are more people on agriculture, there is overburdening. Okay, ज़्यादा लोग अब एक ही काम को कर रहे हैं, तो obviously income dies and income slow, you know, falls, and you know, and then there was lack of modern industry. उससे agricultural implements भी नहीं बन रहे, तो industry ना होने से दो नुकसान हो गए हैं. So basically, I can tell you, to sum it up, the position of the peasantry in India was this, that he was crushed, right? He was crushed under triple burden. This man, peasant. What triple burden? Number one is of government. Government would exploit him, number one. Number two, zamindar would exploit him. And number three, the person who exploited him is money lender. So this is how what was the condition of the peasant, the economic condition of the peasant in India. But don't you, I don't worry. Even these people, zamindars, and even they were exploited. I'll talk to you. There were two kinds of zamindar at this time. One was old zamindar and one was new landlordism. उसके बारे में अभी बात करते हैं. Okay. Ruin of old zamindar and how there was new landlordism and there was new landlordism. Okay, so see what is happening, that most of these old zamindars of Bengal and and Madras, they were suffering, right? And especially because of we know these are Bengal and Madras, they were suffering especially because of the this policy of Lord Warren Hastings, जो इसकी policy आई थी कि of permanent settlement system, right? And whosoever would be the highest bidder, that person, that policy, right? Complete system, the permanent settlement system of 1993. Sorry, sir, I'm sorry. This is 1793, not 1993. Why would that be? Here, so I have already talked about this policy, and if you have listened to the earlier lecture, you can please refer to that for this. And this permanent settlement system, it was there in North Madras, and this was there in Madras, and then there was temporary settlement system, and that was in UP, right? Now they were equally harsh, right? Don't think that because it was permanent and thus it was more harmful, but equally harsh. Now right now, in order that Britishers were that zamindars are able to pay the rent, the government gave them power, right? So zamindar was empowered by he was given powers, and so that they could get to pay rent to government and British government, of course. अब उसमें क्या होता था that they were empowered, these zamindars were empowered to collect maximum rent, right? That was permanent settlement system only, ki you can collect as much rent as you want. Government has a permanent settlement system that they permanently settle the rent, and this is the rent you have to pay to government. Whatever extra you collect, you can keep to yourself. This was a permanent settlement system, right? So this was happening, right? So this way zamindar grew prosperous. So zamindar की prosperity बढ़ गई. तो this is the उसकी prosperity, their wealth increased, right? Now जो moneyed class थी, जिनके पास पैसा था इस टाइम पे, they wanted more land because they were not having any other place to invest. So they what they would do, they would buy lands, they would buy more and more lands. Okay, because they don't have any other place to invest. There is no industry. Where would the money go? They would just invest. Then there was issue of subletting. So basically zamindar is the new landlordism. This is, they are owning all the land. Now there is one more issue of subletting. Letting का मतलब होता है मेरे पास I have the land and मैंने I have to pay rent to the government, but what do? I give it to you, right? There is some person, Mr. X, and this is me over here. I own the land. What I do, I give this person my land and he pays rent to me, and I pay that rent to the government, but government has nothing to do with this person. Okay, because I am unable to grow enough agriculture, because I am a very poor, I'm a farmer with very poor knowledge who does not know how to grow radish or whatever. So what I do, I gave this person the land. So, but I cannot pay, so I gave him. Now what would happen that I would just keep on this person also could not grow much while practicing agriculture, and what he would do, he would further give the land. So in this way, what happened in British India, the subletting was done over 50 times. 50 times this subletting was done. Can you imagine the complexity of the society at that time, right? So this was happening. Now realizing that that zamindars, when they realized that they owe their existence to Britishers, they started supporting British government. So this was happening. Okay, now okay, so this is like one more reason that there was ruin of old zamindar and there was new landlordism. Purana chota zamindar khatam ho gaya because he could not pay the rent, and the policy of permanent settlement system ki wajah se there was new landlordism. Okay, and so we move to the next in economic exploitation only by the Britishers. The next is, so basically we are done with that. There was artisan who was destroyed, and then there was peasant, right, and then there was the zamindar. Okay, all of them have been destroyed. What else? The agriculture as such in itself was destroyed by Britishers. How? Because there was, as I said earlier, there was overcrowding of agriculture, and then there was fragmentation. This also I have told you earlier. Okay, so agriculture was destroyed, and then there was they couldn't there was no capitalization. That means there was no use of fertilizer or high yielding variety of seeds. Nothing could let that happen. So there was poor scientific advancement, and normally all these absentee landlords, and I have already talked about this absentee landlord, that these people were the landlords who were absent from who were not living here. They were not doing anything on the field, and they would live in the cities, and they would just collect the rent and give it to the British and keep a part with themselves. Okay. Right. So government refused. Government also said that we will not improve agriculture. It is not our responsibility whatsoever. Okay, they said no, it is not. So see, when at the same time railways ke upar, on railway 360 crore rupees was spent on agriculture at that time by British India, less than 50 crore rupee were spent. So this was the problem, right? And see, the inorganic fertilizer was not known at that time. Only animal manure was being used. So there were in Indian agriculture no inorganic fertilizer, right? These can have their own harmful impact, but then ultimately they help in growth also. And imagine till 1939 there were only 6 agricultural colleges in India. Now these days every state in India has at least one agricultural university. At that time there were only 6 up to 1939, and not just this, some of them have more than one. This fact was I was actually traveling by train one day, and I met this agricultural scientist from a very renowned agricultural university, and then he was talking to me about that how agricultural universities developed in India. So very interesting history in itself. Nevertheless, so then there was no primacy of literacy, no focus on literacy. That also helps in rather that also destroys agriculture. Okay, so if I talk to you about next thing is what I'd like to talk to you is about the development of industry in India. Okay, just let me put it here. Development of industry in India. What was happening in industry? See, machine age in India, this started in 1850. Now industrial revolution started much earlier. Okay, now the first जो textile mill लगाई गई थी, the first textile mill किसने लगाई थी वो? First textile mill, it was set up in 1853, and if I recall it right, it was set in Bombay, and this was there was a person, very interesting name, Kovasji Nanabhoy, very important name. This is the beginning of the first textile mill. It is a huge industry today. First it was Kovasji Nanabhoy ने लगाई थी 1853 में. This is the first industry की development की कुछ facts हैं पेपर में पूछे जा सकते हैं. When was the first jute mill set up? अब कहाँ होगी? It's obvious, right? That would be in Bengal. लेकिन बंगाल में जहाँ कहाँ हुई थी ये? This was set up at a place called Rishda, right? And this was in 1855. Year is not important. And then you had development of so many other industries, like you had development of press, rice was there, and then ginning, and sugar industry developed a lot. Textile I have already said you. Woolen industry developed a lot, and then all those industries, small industries also, minerals, salt and mica and saltpeter. So all these things, industries were developed at that time. And what was when I talk about industry, one of the important factors is cost of labor. And what was the cost of labor in India at that time? Very, very cheap. Okay. Now raw material, raw industry, when we talk about industry, we also talk about raw material, and raw material was easily available in India. And even for some Indian products, for example, tea was there, or jute, and manganese, and for all these products there was international demand at that time. This was the scene of the industry in India at that time. There were some very important facts, right? But it was only industry जहां पर Indians कुछ कर पाए, where Indians could do something, where they had proper share. It was cotton industry. As I said earlier also in one of the lectures, even though the cotton industry was destroyed to a great extent by the Britishers because of their poor policy, in spite of that, our cotton and silk textile remained dominant, right? And you know how, but there were few problems also. For example, the loan, right? The loans were very costly for Indians, very costly loans for Indians. And you know, so what happens because of this? Gradually it happened, right? That Indian banks came on. For yeah, right, there was Hoshiarpur Bank, it was one of the longest lasting banks of India. They were private banks and owned by individuals. Now, as I said, why industry could not develop? Okay, let me just change the color. The one was this, right? That loans were very costly, and number two reason of why industry could not develop in India, railway. As I said, there was a discriminatory policy in railway. The number three, there was no heavy industry. See, one is normal industry, one is heavy industry. जो heavy industry होती है, it makes the machines for the smaller industry, and you know, like for example, or even the basic things like steel. So in the heavy industry was not set up in India. When you don't have steel, how will you have any other industry in India? Most of the machines are made of steel. Imagine the first steel industry in India. Come on, geography students, you know this, right? The first steel industry was set up in India in 1913. The first heavy industry steel plant. राइट ना प्लांटेशन एग्रीकल्चर ऑल्सो ग्रू एट दिस टाइम, जैसे कि इंडिगो टी और कॉफी सब चल रहा था, ठीक है. अब टॉक टू यू कैसे दीन बंधु मित्रा ने उसके अंदर नील दर्पण के अंदर मेंशन किया है वो इंडिगो रिवोल्ट 1860 वाले जो हुए थे, ओके. एंड लेटर ऑन हम देखेंगे कैसे चंपारण सत्याग्रह भी बाद में जाके इंडिगो से जुड़ेगा. सो बट व्हाट हैपेंड दैट वी डेवलप्ड इंडिगो, राइट. सो दिस इज लाइक 1 नंबर है, 2 3, okay, let's come down over here. Number 4 is let me just clear it, okay, that will be easier for you then. This is the reason or destruction of industry, right? 1 is loan, right? Number 2 is railway. Number 3 is no heavy industry, and number 4, which I am talking about now, is plantation. Now there was a huge plantation industry developing in India, especially related to indigo and tea. But what happened, that Germans, they developed, the German people are very intelligent, very hardworking people. German people, they developed a new synthetic dye, right? They people developed synthetic dye, right? And when synthetic dye came, it was what do you call that? It was not substituted in India. Indians were still forced to grow indigo, so and there was complete destruction of our industry here, right? And you know, then this tea industry, where did it all develop? Tea industry in India कहाँ develop हुई थी इस time पे? It was in Assam, Bengal, South India and partially hills of Himachal Pradesh. तो कांगड़ा वाला area जो है हिमाचल में, right? And imagine these three sector of plantation, I mean textile, jute, and not third is not exactly plantation, right? I mean tea and jute, okay, and then also cotton, right? Now 40% पॉपुलेशन ऑफ इंडिया, 40% वर्कर जो था हमारा टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर का, जूट में और कॉटन इन्हीं इंडस्ट्री में लगा होता राइट अप टू 1946. दिस शोज दैट नो अदर इंडस्ट्री डेवलप, पीपल वर्किंग जस्ट दिस मच ओनली, ओके. सो अगर कोई भी प्रोडक्ट वुड कम फ्रॉम, लेट्स से दैट, नाउ दिस इज अनदर प्रॉब्लम, फिफ्थ प्रॉब्लम, एंड दिस इज प्रॉब्लम ऑफ इम्पोर्ट ड्यूटीज. एंड whenever new things came from, let's say, US or any place, right, UK or France, whatever was imported into India with even the raw material, that was very very costly in India, right? And जो इंडियंस होते थे, इंडियन इंडस्ट्रीज, ओके, दिस इज नंबर 6 पॉइंट ओवर हेयर, दैट इंडियंस जो इंडस्ट्री ओन करते थे जैसे सीमेंट या आयरन, सो इंडियन इंडस्ट्री, दिस इंडियन इंडस्ट्री जैसे सीमेंट, आयरन एंड स्टील, सीमेंट, आयरन, एंड this is iron and this is steel, whatever, right? Now these people, they were denied protection, right? And foreign industry, there was no protection for them, and foreign industry was protected. That was a problem, right? And what more was there? And see, when British imports were given preferences, those were called imperial preferences. This can be a question. Preference to British imports is called imperial preferences. And industry growth, it was confined to some areas only. So this was another problem. Number 8, I'm writing over here. Number 8, this is what is this problem here? That confined industry. Okay, confined. The industry was, the size of the industry, the location of the industry was actually limited to very few areas. Our working class, now this is the last point actually, जो हमारा working class था, जो modern capitalist था, right, they were totally new to Indian the industry and all the things that were happening at this time. So they represented the technology and new system of economic organization जो आया, या social relation आया, right. Now they had an Indian outlook and they were interested in the industrial development of the nation. Okay, now this is the point. Now they were interested in Indian development. All these people, Indian development, चाहे वो industrialist था यहाँ का इस time का, right. ये नहीं कि industrialist तो ब्रिटिशर की जाके support करते थे, but the point is that Britishers did not let them grow because they supported India. ठीक है. So this was another problem of economy in India. I'll just clear the screen, and so we have talked about the number 1 is artisan, number 2 we talked about is peasantry, and number 3 was zamindar, and number 4 is agriculture, number 5 we talked about was industry. Okay, so artisan, peasantry, zamindar, agriculture, industry. Now all these things impact economy of India. Next thing that impacts the economy of India at this time, it was what do you call this poverty, right? Poverty and famines in India. These also played a very huge role in India. I'll just talk about them now. All these things, the drain theory, which I will be talking in the next lecture, and then decay of local industry and high taxation, all these things, every policy, it led to strain on agriculture. Okay, because there was strain on agriculture, and right. So the people were under extreme poverty because of that, right? And this culminated in a series of famines in India, and especially during the second half of the 19th century. Okay, second half of 19th century was a period of famines. So what were those famines? I'll just list the few famines जो मुझे याद हैं. You can always add on if you want in the comment section. I'll add the annotation to it. The main famines that I know are 1860 to 61 was a major famine in which this was in western UP, right? And about number of people died here were 2 lakh. This was happening there in western UP. Right. Number 2 is 1865 to 66. This famine was there in areas of these eastern areas, this Odisha, Bengal, and then you had Bihar. Okay, and then Madras. It was happening here, and in this famine, 20 lakh people died. Right. And then there was very famous famine of 1868 to 70, and this was in Punjab and again in western UP and in Bombay. So in this famine, around 14 lakh people died. Imagine number of people who are dying because of famines. And number 4 is a very famous famine of 1943, and in this famine, this happened in Bengal, and 30 lakh people died in it. Unbelievable number of deaths. And this famine 1943, you might have seen this painting it's called the Bengal famine of 1943, and this painting was by a very famous author called Zainul Abidin, and please remember his name because this has been mentioned in NCERT, so you also must know this, right? And there was one research happened that was done by a person called Colin Clark, right? And now what he said that from 1925 to 34, India and China had the lowest per capita income in world. India, China, these countries had lowest per capita income in world. These western countries today call us a poor country, but they are rich because they sucked our money. They took all our money. इसलिए गड़बड़ हुई है इतनी सारी. ठीक है ना. एंड वी वर द रिचेस्ट कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड. आई टॉक्ड अबाउट इन द इसके बारे में पहले बात की है हमने कैसे इंडिया वाज सो रिच, एंड देन बिकॉज ऑफ ब्रिटिशर हमारी ये कंडीशन हो गई. एंड लुक एट द कंडीशन ऑफ द पीपल in 1930s. The average life expectancy was 32 years. It's around 67 years today, but at that time it was 32 years only. 32 साल average age expectancy थी. कोई इससे क्या पता लग रहा है? There was no modern science, no sanitation, nothing. बीमारियां ही बीमारियां. right? You know, all these famines that happened here, what do you think were the reason for that? See, please understand, most of these famines जो इंडिया में हुए हैं, these were man made famines. ठीक है जी? कैसे? There was no agriculture, as I said, no industry, and there was very poor management of whatever was produced in India. Now see, poor management, no agriculture industry or management, and you cannot say that poverty was the result of India's geography, and nor it was the result of so poverty in India was not result of geography, right? Indian geography is good, or the even Mughal rule. See, a lot of people these days, these religiously fanatic people, they keep on saying that Muslims came and looted us and thus we are poor today. No, it is the Britishers who looted, no, not these Mughals, right? You know, it is because of the British economic policy that we are so, and you know, and then you know, many states, like you know, the famines were so extreme. Just to give you one data, that in Rajputana, right, in Rajputana 33% population was lost because of famines. इतना बुरा हाल था. And just before I end this part of economy lecture, the lecture is not ending though, I'll like give you one very interesting fact, and this is just a coincidence, that the date of beginning of industrial revolution in Britain and the date of starting of the British conquest of Bengal, it was same, right? That was 1757, the प्लासी की लड़ाई है जो. Okay, so industrial revolution and Bengal के ऊपर British का control, both these started since 1757, right? So these all this shows that how bad British economic policy was. But how do we know? You see, for the first time, let's say you see the bulb, or let's say you have a glass in your hand, glass of water. For the first time, everyone knows this thing very simple. If you put water in glass, it's easier to drink. But when the first time thing is invented, it is very difficult to imagine it. Even when the thing has been invented, it looks very simple. Bulb is there. It's very simple to make a bulb. You can make, you know, if you have some knowledge and some raw material, you can make it at home also now. But can you make it for the first time without knowing the formula? No. In the same way, how did we come to know that Britishers are looting us? So how this economic critique of Britishers, this critique of theirs, it was started in 19th century by early leaders who were known as moderates. Okay, now इनको moderates कहते थे. Moderates क्यों कहते थे, इसके बारे में करेंगे बात. मोटा तौर पे on the broader scale, I can just say that because their method of fighting British was a moderate method. They were not extremists. They will not go and do violence. They would do petitioning, or they at the max they would do hartal, but they would not kill Britishers. Okay, so this was happening. So all the themes जो built around. See, a lot of people say India got freedom because of only the extremist, and a lot of people say just because of the moderate. They both played a role, bhai. कैसे? These moderate, whatever the themes they built around them only, they were later on popularized. Whatever the method of fighting they introduced, they were later on popularized, and there were a lot of lectures and pamphlets and newspaper dramas. We used everything. These days you have nukkad natak, these street plays, and same way at that time you would have dramas, and these days you also have the songs. So that those days also had songs, and then you had newspapers, and lectures were there, and pamphlets were there. So all these things were there at that time, used in propagation of the idea or the spread of idea of economic critique, right? Now first half जो था the हमारा अगर 19th century का first half देखें, यानी 1800 से almost 1850 तक का देख लें, not exactly 1850, तो जो हमारी पॉजिटिव एटीट्यूड था टुवर्ड द ब्रिटिश, राइट? वी हैड पॉजिटिव एटीट्यूड. वी होप्ड कि वो हमारी हेल्प करेंगे, दे वुड मॉडर्नाइज इंडिया, राइट? एंड वी थॉट पॉजिटिव क्या था, मॉडर्नाइज करेंगे हमें. Okay, and they would bring science and technology to India. They would introduce capital in India. They would invest in India, right? लेकिन ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं उन्होंने किया. फिर क्या हुआ? Then we came to the later half of the 19th century, especially after 1857, right? And 1900 plus the years after that also. In fact, in fact, 1860 onward, all the hopes were belied. There was no social development, no economic development. Political development were very, very weak. So there was a progress in somewhat progress, but it was very weak. So British जो image थी वो अब हमें लगने समझ आनी शुरू हुई. The Britishers are of no good to India. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल सी यू नो ब्रिटिश रूल वाज बेस्ड ऑन टू प्रीमाइसेस. ब्रिटिश रूल था वो दो बातों पर बेस्ड था. नंबर वन, दैट ब्रिटिशर आर इनविंसिबल, उनको हराया ही नहीं जा सकता. नंबर टू, this was based that British rule is for good of India. People were very, very convinced of these two things, and Britishers strategically implemented this. Because, for example, these are many politicians say, not all of, some of them are good politicians, even the modern day politician. Some of them are like, we are for your good, and that is why you should vote us, blah blah, and all that. But see, same way we thought at that time there was a very genuine feeling among the people that it is for our good. Okay, but a lot of people were not realizing this, that they are not for our good. These policies, that there was no economic, social, cultural, political development in India, rather there was ruin. We realized that they are not for good of India. And secondly, because of revolt of 1857, we thought that yes, Britishers are not invincible. Britishers can be defeated. Okay, Britishers ko haraya ja sakta hai. Okay, so this was happening, right? So three names basically stand out if we talk about the economic critique of Britishers. So these three people are, one is a very important name, please remember this name, Dada Bhai Nauroji. Okay, number one. Second name over here is Justice Mahadev Govind Ranade, M.G. Ranade. And number three over here, it was R.C. Dutt, Ramesh Chandra Dutt. So what was their role? This Dada Bhai Nauroji is known as the grand old man of India, right? Okay, he was born in 1825 and he is known as the grand old man of India. This question has been asked in UPLC many a times, that who is known as the grand old man of India. Even recently it was asked. And then he was a very successful businessman, and then his story is that he gave away all his wealth, his money for the national movement in India. And then he is known as the India's first economic thinker की बात करें इंडिया के अंदर सबसे पहले इन्होंने ही सोचा. एंड देन ही वाज आल्सो द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ कांग्रेस, राइट? 1886 I distinctly remember this. And then 1893 was there, 1906 later on he also come, right? He was the president of Congress, and then he was the president of East India Association also in 1866. See, he's one of the people, one of the freedom fighters who has been least respected in Indian history to my mind, because the contribution he's done is enormous. It is because of him, one of the primary contribution, we realized that we are in a problem, and because of his contribution we could fight Britishers. Had he not done his research, how would we have realized that we are in a mess because of Britishers? His analysis, उन्होंने समझाया हमें बेवकूफ बना रहे हैं अंग्रेज, हमें लूट रहे हैं, तो हम समझे चीजों को, इसलिए हम कुछ आगे जाके कर पाए. इतना बड़ा रोल था. लेकिन दादा भाई नौरोजी को आज इंडिया में वो सम्मान नहीं मिलता है जितना लोग और लीडर्स को देते हैं. इट्स नॉट दैट औरों को नहीं देना चाहिए, बट ही आल्सो डिजर्व्स दैट. And then Mahadev Govind Ranade, he told people the importance of industry, right? If anyone wants to focus on industry, and then they can read about Mahadev Govind Ranade, and if anyone wants to justify that we should focus on industry than agriculture, they should also read his part, because he taught the people about the values of modern industrial development. And then this very, very intelligent person, R.C. Dutt, of course he was an ICS officer, so we read about that. He published a book, I have already named it, I will not write the name, just the short form for it. He wrote the book, The Economic History of India, the economic history of India, and he examined the minute details, right, from 1757 से इन्होंने इनको details को निकाला था. Probably that was in 1901 only when his book was published, right? So they also popularized all these people. स्वदेशी को इन्होंने बहुत फोकस किया, हमारे लोकल गुड्स के ऊपर फोकस किया इन्होंने, so that Indian industry develops at that time, right? And then there were other leaders also who contributed a lot apart from these three people, but these three people have to be in your answer. Dada Bhai Nauroji, Justice M.G. Ranade, R.C. Dutt, and who are the other people? There was G.V. Joshi ji, ठीक है जी. And then there's so many people actually. South India से आए थे, Subramania Iyer, and then there was Gokhale, of course, was there. Gokhale always contributed to everything, and then there was PC Ray was also there. He also made a great contribution. So these people questioned the nature and the purpose of British rule. They questioned that, right? Conclusion ये है इस बात का यहाँ पे निकलता कि जो colonialism था, it was the main obstacle to India's economic development, right? So the first conclusion that came, which was taken out by these critiques was that the colonialism was a major obstacle to Indian economic development. Number one. Number two, that a sense of the British imperialism, it lays in the subordination of the Indian economy to the British economy. So that British imperialism, it is based on subordination, and if we are subordinated, then only their economy grows and our economy falls back. We must not be subordinated to them. Number three is the three aspects of domination जिसकी basis के ऊपर Britishers dominate कर रहे हैं हमारे ऊपर. Those are trade, industry and finance. Trade, industry and finance. What else? जो ब्रिटिश हमारी एक्सप्लॉयटेशन कर रहे हैं वो प्लंडर से नहीं कर रहे थे. दैट हैपेंड लॉट ऑफ टाइम ड्यूरिंग मुगल पीरियड, बट और ट्रिब्यूट बेस्ड दिस, बट दैट मनी रिमेन्ड इन इंडिया, दैट डिडंट गो आउटसाइड इंडिया. बट विद ब्रिटिश इट इज नाइदर ट्रिब्यूट और प्लंडर. इट वाज थ्रू अ कॉम्प्लेक्स मैकेनिज्म ऑफ फ्री ट्रेड, फॉरेन कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट. Sometimes when I'm studying all these scams in India, I feel that very soon most of the people will not be able to understand even that they have been cheated. For example, let's talk about 2G scam. How many people understand that actually there was something called something like that? So what happened in 2G scam? How many people know? Or let's even say coal scam. How many people know that what kind of scam it was exactly? Very few people. So we need these people like these, who can guide, who can talk about economic corruption, how these political corruption is leading to economic corruption. This interrelation needs to be developed even today, right? They realize that India has been transformed into a supplier of raw material. Although we were actually the manufacturers using the raw material, right? And then number 6, that poverty in India is because of British policy and not because of God or any other natural factor. Same way, poverty in today in India is not because of that we lack talent or we lack anything that is needed. We have people ready to work hard enough, but the problem is of other things, right? And then there are a few more things in this. These people also took part in national political agitations, okay? And for example, when I talked about Nauroji, his main focus always was poverty. Okay, now this economic critique was used in the Indian national political agitation, right? And इसके अंदर उन्होंने जाकर कहा, they said that Indians are poor and we are growing poorer because of British rule. उसका proof दिया इन्होंने ऐसे करके. So this is the role they played, Indians को awake करने में, जगाने में, to awaken the Indians. This economic critique is very important. Don't you think that ये question सिर्फ means में आ सकता है? This will come in prelim exam, I'm telling you. अगर analytical question paper आ गया, this will be there in paper, right? And problem of poverty, this problem was seen as a problem of national development, and it united the people. It was a problem, poverty जो की problem थी, ये national development की problem थी इंडिया के अंदर, तो इसकी वजह से लोग united हो गए. And then there was complete ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन ऑफ द कंट्री यहाँ पे हो गई, क्योंकि ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी एंड कैपिटल एंटरप्राइज. जैसे हमारी इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज का एम ही ये है. इंडस्ट्रियलिज्म को एक सुपीरियर स्टेज ऑफ सिविलाइजेशन माना गया था, ये भी इन्होंने किया था. इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन को सुपीरियर स्टेज ऑफ एक सिविलाइजेशन माना गया. एंड इसकी वजह से इंडिया में नई नई चीज़ें, एक नई एक्टिविटीज शुरू हो गई. एंड देन फाइनली दिस रेलवे, ट्रेड, टेरर, exchange, finance and labor laws and all these things, they were considered important. ठीक है, हमने सारी तरक्की करेंगे, हम भी इंडस्ट्रियलाइज्ड होंगे, लेकिन one thing was clear, we will not industrialize on the basis of British capital. We will industrialize with Indian capital, Indian ownership. You see, these days many people give logic that even freedom fighters fought against Britishers. There's one basic difference. When today we talk about foreign companies coming to India, they are coming in a very controlled atmosphere, controlled environment, so many conditional investments only. That is why it is okay. नाउ सी जो इंडिया का ट्रेडिशनल हैंडीक्राफ्ट था इस टाइम पे, ठीक है, वो मैं आपको बता चुका हूँ, वो डिक्लाइन कर गया. और यू नो देन आई हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट टैक्सेशन एंड हाई एक्सपेंडिचर वाज देयर. Okay, so and then you know all these thinkers, they gave a theory of drain of wealth. Now because this lecture will be very long, so I'll just give that in the next lecture. I'll talk to you about the drain of the wealth theory, right? And then in general the conclusion of the whole of the economic critique, plus in next lecture, okay, let me just write it here. So one is the drain of wealth theory, overall conclusion of this chapter, and then I will also talk to you about the various systems of revenue collection in the next lecture. Okay, so this was happening in the economic critique. अगर हम in depth किसी भी चीज़ किसके बारे में बात करते हैं. Okay, and so one last thing over here, and this is subscribe. If you subscribe to us, you get a mail in your account which says that a new video has been uploaded. And one more very important request is, please share. If you share, that is support, that is a huge support for me. When you share, I'm encouraged to make videos better and faster. So that is all, and thank you for watching.